Welcome to Hiring Happy Humans, where we talk about all things HR with a variety of folks, from CEOs to community partners, sharing up-to-date trends, best practices, and our wild workplace stories. Each interview is designed to leave you with the knowledge to keep your sanity. I'm your host, Dawn Sipley of Sipley the Best. Thanks for joining in, and let's jump into this week's episode. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to have Kristi here with me today. Kristi and I have known each other for a number of years now. We met through the Christian Chamber of Commerce. She had just moved to the area. She was fresh off the boat from South Florida. Am I correct?
Southwest Florida, yes.
Yep. And, she heard that she should come to a Christian Chamber meeting and showed up, and we never let her go ever since then. So just so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for joining me.
This is awesome.
So just kind of kick off so people know a little bit about who you are. What is it that you do? How do you serve? And what is it that you're pushing towards in 2023?
Awesome. So first off, just so people know how amazing you are, I went to a business networking group and literally stood up and said, I just moved here and I don't have a job and I don't know anybody. And somebody came over and gave me their card and said, send me an email and I will introduce you to Dawn Sipley. She knows everyone and she's in the HR employment field. So I called you. You were so generous with your time and you're like, yeah, you're not my candidate, but I want to invite you to a Fellowship Friday with Christian Chamber. And I was like, Christian Chamber, what's that? So
I didn't even remember I was the one that invited you.
You were the one that invited me.
That's right.
Made sure you were there and you were there on time and you changed my life. So thank you for that. You have no idea the impact you have in my life. And so it's like, I'm like your number one fan sitting here with you today. So this is an honor to be able to have this fun conversation with you and in front of your awesome audience. So thank you. With that being said, my name is Kristi Nowrouzi, and I have been a mortgage loan officer for a lot of years, over 12 years. I actually started in the real estate business when I was 17 years old, a junior in high school. I was an afternoon receptionist at a Century 21 office in my hometown and learned the ropes. This was old school time, right? Before even alpha pagers were out. That is shows you my age, but it was a lot of fun to learn the industry. And I got my real estate license right after I graduated from high school, because that was one of the protocols. You have to have a GED or high school diploma. So as soon as I graduated, I got my real estate license. And then I thought, nobody's going to follow an 18-year-old and trust me. So I went into property management. And anyway, at the age of 24, I went into financing homes. And it's just been such a wild ride. And, God's really been able to kind of knit all of these different angles that I've done over the years into where I'm at today. I know a whole lot about this one thing, about home financing, but not financing loans. Like that's one layer of it, but being able to really serve people in a huge way when they're buying, especially their first home. There's this huge language barrier, right? It's almost like a different language when you're going through this process. So to be able to walk alongside somebody through this journey is super exciting. I love working with first-time home buyers and actually brand new realtors, because unfortunately they're not taught much of anything other than how to keep their hind end out of jail with their
compliance, nothing about how to meet people or develop relationships, any of that. So
how even to write a contract or an offer, that could become a solid contract. So so I love teaching all of that. It's just really where my heart is. I even wrote a book about first time being, preparing to be a first time home buyer. So that's my heart, my passion. And then that's really kind of turned into teaching about credit and our money mindset. It's funny. It wasn't until I was in my very late 30s that I kind of looked at my own life and I was like, why am I stuck? I'm in a career, I'm earning good money. Well, at the time I wasn't, I was broke. I wanted to earn good money. And I was thinking like, okay, I have a master's degree. I have a lot of sales experience. I feel like I'm able to connect with people. I have all my teeth. Like, why am I not more successful in life?
Right.
Like I live in the freest country in the world. Like, what is standing in my way? And when I really started doing the work, Dawn, I started to realize like I'm the one standing in my way. So I have this story, that's been created from a very, very young age. And it turns out I had been living into this story my entire life, and it just shows up. But what's interesting is I learned that we all have a story, our core story, and especially when it comes to money. And it's created from our environment, from our beliefs systems that were kind of implemented into us, not really by design. I don't think our parents knew what they were teaching us when they're just demonstrating the way that they know how to get through life and to get to the next paycheck or whatever somebody else's experience was. And then when I really started digging deep into what that looked like, my parents, God love them, they were amazing, amazing people, married 54 years before my dad passed away last year. And my father was a pastor. And my mom, when you have 5 kids, what else do? You bring in more kids. So she brought in a bunch of foster kids. She had a daycare. Like at any given time, there were like 12 to 15 little rugrats running around.
I remember you have a remarkable number of siblings that you had kind of come through your home. What was that number again?
So there's 5 of us. I'm number 4 out of 5. But my mom and dad for many years took in 150 to 200 foster kids a year. Wow. And it's funny because when I was telling Andrew when we were dating before we got married, he didn't believe me. And then he heard my mom say it at my dad's funeral. He kind of like nudged me because I knew what he was saying to me. He was like, all right, I believe you now. Because it's insane, right? But they were an emergency shelter too. So sometimes
short stays.
Overnight until we could find a family member to place them with. And then there was this one guy, Jeff, I thought he was my brother because he'd been with us for so long. I think I was 3 or 4 when he lived with us for way over a year. I just didn't know different. And my parents never treated them any differently. I mean, the love was just unconditional no matter what. It was amazing. So my example, because we were so poor, broke and poor, was that you could do good in this world or you could make money. But I didn't know you could have both. Because my example wasn't of that, my parents were doing amazing things and missionaries would come and stay with us as they traveled. And I didn't know any different, but what was crazy is I didn't know that was my belief. It never occurred to me. And so we go through our young adult life, never questioning what our beliefs are. And when we can take some time to actually go through those layers, kind of those superficial layers of like, well, I believe this because, but there's something deeper and something deeper. So when we can work through that process and really figure out what that subconscious belief is, then we can release it and create a new belief. So my new belief was that I could do great in this world and I could get paid well to do it. And the way I convinced myself to accept that as a story is my life goal. Through my working years, I yearn to live off of a third, save a third, and give a third away. So I know if I could make more money, I could be super generous to the organizations that are doing the best good, right? So that's the way I can make this impact. So it was really releasing to be able to get, shed myself of that story and then start to learn, like I can teach other people about how to work through their story and create a new relationship with money. Because, there are people that believe that they're not worthy of money. So as soon as it comes their way, they throw it away or they block it from coming their way, which is unfortunately what I was doing. Yeah.
That's really fascinating. Having grown up in poverty myself, I really developed a new understanding of what that is. I've heard you kind of speak about that. And it's funny, specifically as a business owner, you think of money, you think of your personal wallet and funds. But once you get into entrepreneurship, not only are you responsible for that, of course, always, but then the business, but then once you employ people, you are then talking about you are responsible for the lifestyle, stability, all of those things of your employees, and then how we feel about those things. And I think through my 20-something years in this industry, having worked with hundreds of companies and negotiated like millions of dollars of salaries, hearing those money stories on each side. Well, I want to offer this because da, 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 da. And then I want to counter offer this or reject the offer. I'll take the offer, because da, 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 da. And you hear it just over and over and over again. It's really fascinating, and you really learn a lot about how money plays in business and entrepreneurship and things like that. And for me, what I kind of discovered is I kind of had the same. I've had a funny relationship with money, as in I really wanted it. I thought that I really wanted it. Like, who doesn't want to, I want to grow up and be a millionaire, but I think I blocked it. In a lot of ways. I would rather be comfortable and safe and stable than risky and rich. And so I found, because I had a chaotic childhood, and so to really be able to make money, you have to be a little edgy and a little crazy and be doing things that other people aren't doing. So you're bringing value in other ways that people aren't bringing. So
well, what if subconsciously, one of your parents had kind of suggested that rich people were bad people, and so you were like, well, if I'm going to be a rich person, I'm going to be a bad person, and I don't want to own that.
Right. And so then it was really fascinating when my business started doing really well. I mean, I pay myself a W-2 thing.
Right.
And you know how I decided what to pay myself?
Yeah.
In my last job with my last business partner, I had asked for a certain number and he would not give it to me. He gave me about $1,200 less in annual salary. And so that agitated me, that it was when Obama was in office, and he had done that Department of Labor salaried employees now have to make like $48,274, something like that. And he gave me that exact number, and it was the exact minimum. And I was like, I want 50, and he was like, no. And it got me a little bit and kind of showed me where my value was and stuff. To him, it was $1,200. We were meeting a threshold. To me, it was the difference between being valuable and being the cheapest commodity.
That's so
the messaging behind these dollar signs was very strong, and it was influential, to a lot of decisions that I made after that.
Yeah. $100 a month is kind of irrelevant in the big scheme.
We would spend that on dinner and drinks on a Tuesday.
The meaning that was connected to that. And I mean, it would have potentially propelled you to work a little bit harder, give a little bit more. And now you're almost walking around feeling like he doesn't see me as worthy and valuable. And so how did that show up in how you performed every day? Like, you may have put hey, I'm only worth 48,000. That's all you're getting out of me. You know? So that's,
but I, and the funny, ironic part is it was a significant raise.
Yeah. It was just shy though of what you felt was a threshold that was really one of significance. So it's really incredible. I mean, your audience being business owners, right? A lot of entrepreneurs, soulpreneurs, however you want to say it. It's important to try to see if we can discover what that means to people, or where meaning is put for the people that you bring in,
and to coach them on that, and to have them maybe look at what their money story is, so they can have the emotional maturity to kind of see those things for what they are and have conversation around it. Because I think the thing that people don't do, and that's, it's the devil, is they create like a sense of shame and isolation around money, and people don't talk about it. People don't want to talk numbers. People don't want to, share that kind of stuff. And
we did not talk about what somebody earned growing up.
Taboo.
It was taboo. But you know what? Tell me something that money doesn't touch. It's not important as oxygen, but man, it's a close second.
Yeah.
So not only, to be able to survive, right? Like to have that Maslow's theory, that initial bottom layer, shelter, food, those basic necessities covered, but there's significance and identity tied to money. And there's a tremendous amount of emotion, just like you just demonstrated in that story. I mean, that you had significance in your personal and professional value tied to that. And had your, ex-partner just explored that a little bit to find out what was significant about 50, because he was just seeing it as a number, right?
Right.
You were seeing it
A
as
message.
a message for sure.
Yeah.
So had he been able to understand that, at least even if you felt heard,
Right.
you know,
Right.
and
Exactly.
understood, you know,
And that's
maybe
what I really try to encourage leaders to do, is to educate and be curious, educate your people to being better, whether it's financially, spiritually, whatever that looks like for them. You don't have to get into the nitty gritty, but encourage whatever they choose to do, because, that is healthy emotionally, financially, physically. Look at the types of snacks that you put in the snack room. Look at the habits that your company creates. It's not the cheap conveniences, but are you investing kind of in those things? And is it consistent? Because the employee handbook can say, we value our people, and what the mission is this, and that this is, but all they do is feed you donuts with a broken keyboard in a poorly lit room, yelling at you about when the deadline is. And it's like, we love our people. We're a family. It's like, what kind of abusive family did you come from?
That's right. You say such a significant statement there. I want to unpack that for just a minute. I worked for a company for years, and the reason I worked there for years is because they treated me like family. But for some people, family didn't treat them well. So what does that mean, right?
Right, exactly.
My definition was I felt cared for at all times.
Mhm.
And it was found in the little things that, yes, cost them money, but in the big scheme of things, they got a lot more out of me than it ever cost for them. So I'll give you an example or two. The
Okay.
fridge was always stocked. And unless your name was on it because you brought it from home in your own Tupperware, it
Mhm.
was shared. It was shared for everybody who worked there. There were incredible snacks, like these different kinds of like designer cheeses and fruits, and you could make sandwiches and all these things, and chips and some healthy stuff, and name brand coffee. Like it was good stuff.
Yeah.
So what that demonstrated
Pride.
to me, yeah, exactly. But for some people, you don't know their financial situation. What if they have parents in a third world country if they're sending half their paycheck to just to make sure that they keep a roof over their head, kind of a thing. And this might be their only really great meal. Like you don't always know what's going on behind somebody's like personal doors. So just having that was awesome. But at the same time, I didn't have to run out and go grab something, or I didn't have to think about bringing my own meal. Guess who got more work time out of me?
Smart people.
Kind of by design, yeah, because I literally just kind of went and sat at my desk instead of sitting in the kitchen by myself, because there were other people around me. I could still have conversation, or I could sit on my phone. But my lunch break tended to be a little bit faster that way. And they took some time to really uncover what was important to each person. Like, what was that driver? Was it intrinsic, or was it an external driver?
Love languages too.
Oh, yeah.
Know your employees' love languages,
So one person just wanted to be like highlighted in front of all of the colleagues, right? Just brag on her, right? She loved that. I hated the public. Like, I didn't want that. But for the boss, for the owner to come to me and say, I saw your numbers last month. Yeah. Not a girl, that was so special, getting that reassurance, and that pat on the back directly from him. That went further than $100 gift card would have,
100%.
But somebody else with a whole bunch of mouths at home to feed, that $100 gift card could have provided, a week's worth of food, and was more important than a pat on the back. So just uncovering those little things that mean the most to each person, and then speaking to it, you're talking to somebody's heart, Earlier before we started recording, we said, people make decisions from their head, their heart, or their gut. And it's a matter of uncovering where most of those decisions come from, and then just being in alignment with that and being in understanding with that, to really be able to serve people well, whether it's our clients, our referral partners, or our employees.
Yeah. I'll never forget one of the jobs that my husband had. It cracks me up even thinking about the audacity of some people. So he was in the break room, and this was a grungy place. And I've always told employees, when you are interviewing in an establishment, ask for a tour, even if it's just the office, and look at a couple
of bathrooms, the break room.
Bathrooms and break rooms, baby. But anyway, so this place was disgusting. And so it just solidifies my thing. But he poured his coffee in, and then his sugar and creamer. And he was told by the manager not to do that because he was wasting stir time. Because if you put the sugar and creamer in first and then you pour the coffee on top, you might get that extra, 15 seconds, and he needed to get, because he wasn't off the clock, he wasn't on break, he was just grabbing a cup of Joe real quick.
Wow.
And it was like, talk about micromanagement down to a T. After that, he was like, forget about it. I'm out here breaking my back in the sun, and you're going to tell me how to pour my coffee so I can go faster,
Wow. I will forever remember that story. I'm gonna name that something in my brain and remember to never make somebody feel that way.
Right. So, and, I love that you work a lot with one of your things, I would bet, if you did personality testing, is you love to be a person of influence. Do you get a lot of gratitude by seeing the impact of your knowledge?
100%.
Yeah, me too. I'm built the same way. So it's no surprise to me that new homeowners and new realtors are kind of something that catch your passion and caught your attention, and you've taken intentionality with trying to have an impact on. I know that the employees who are homeowners have lower turnover, like across the board, statistically speaking. You can't hire based on those things, but if you can educate your employees on what homeownership can look like, put it in reach, maybe bring in some professionals like yourself to say, how do I understand my credit? Let's just start at the baseline. Like, what is credit? Like, do I have to have a credit card? Should I go get a loan? I remember some loan shark. I worked at a sub shop, and they were in the plaza, and it was a payday loan place. And I was 19, and she said, if you want to build your credit, you should pull a loan from us. And so she could convince me to pull like an $800 loan. I put it in my savings account, and then I paid her back because I thought it was going to build my credit.
You're earning.
Yeah, I didn't have parents to tell me about these. Yeah. I literally borrowed money to put it in my savings account because I was trying to be responsible and build my credit. I didn't have a credit, Kristi, in my life. And you know what? Really just chapped my behind is that thing never showed up on my credit report ever. I never saw it on my credit because, of course, I'm like an owl watching it, waiting for it to. You should have seen me when I had my first 800 score. I was like, oh, I thought I was grown up.
Well, this just opens up a whole can. So I'm going to try to keep my brain focused because it's just like pew 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 all over the place.
All right, don't pull a Ron Warren on me. Only insiders will know that joke.
I love Ron. So many things out of that. So first and foremost, a lot of people attach their credit score to their financial worthiness. It's a signifier of your ability to manage money properly. But unfortunately, most people aren't taught that, much like your example right there. So first and foremost, there is a way to build credit properly versus some other way. And it's not really taught in schools. Most of us learned what we know about money and borrowing from our parents. Well, if your parents robbed Peter to pay Paul, that might be something that you don't even realize you're doing. It's just a system that seemed to have worked. And again, it goes back to our core beliefs. I started working at a very, very young age, like literally on my 15th birthday. My dad took me to go get my, permit to drive, and I went and applied for a job. It's so interesting. So, our behaviors are really modeled over after our beliefs, and that all turns into our habits and what shows up, daily and weekly in our lives. So when it comes to credit, there's a way to really start it properly. I just want to take a minute to explain that because you actually want to not look like you need to borrow money when it is time to borrow money. Banks and lenders love to loan money to people who don't look desperate for it. When you are desperate for it is usually when you are maxed out, you have no other option but to pay a little bit higher or a whole lot higher on an interest rate. And then you wind up just digging so far, it almost becomes a grave because you keep digging. And when you are paying 25 and 30% interest, which to some people might sound crazy, to others, they might go, yeah, that's what I'm paying on my store credit cards right now. It's $24.99 to $29.99. And if you don't believe me, as you're out at a store, grab that little pamphlet and just look at the fine print. And what's interesting about that, if you feel a lot of those pamphlets, it's colorful on the outside because they want you to say yes to it. But if you
Right.
ever unfolded it, it feels gross, and the font is so tiny, and it's written by a bunch of attorneys in legalese that you can't really understand it. But do go and find that APR place, and then just know, you're probably paying close to 30% in interest. And that's where people really tend to get buried because they don't understand what that
What
equates
snowballs.
to in numbers, right? So a really great place to start to establish credit is to have one revolving account and one installment loan. So what does that mean? A revolving is typically a credit card. Home equity lines of credit fall into that as well. And then an installment loan might be a personal loan. It could be a student loan, an auto loan, and a mortgage is actually its own thing, but it is an installment loan because it's a fixed payment over a fixed amount of time, and you've agreed to borrow this certain amount of money, which you're paying. Now, revolving, what's really important about that being credit cards is a lot of people don't realize that there is this equation for something that's called your debt utilization. So they get a $300 first credit card and they go max it out and pay it off, max it out and pay it off. And they're like, look at me being a good little borrower. I'm using all that's available to me and I'm paying it on time. Well, you actually appear on paper that you are mismanaging money because you are overusing what's available to you. Even though they allotted you $300 on that secured credit card or first credit card, they don't want you to use $300. They want you to use 30% or less. There's actually this magic number right now where it's somewhere between 9 and 10% of what's available to you.
Right.
So a lot of people don't realize that. The other thing is there's this time allotted, this grace period. It tends to be about 25 days on credit cards. And so if you pay off that balance during that grace period, then you can literally pay 0% interest. But a lot of people wait until the bill arrives, then they pay it. And now they paid that 25 to 30% APR. So now you're unnecessarily paying interest charges. And it's being reported on your credit report that you have this maxed out credit card. And so it will actually hurt your credit scores. On an installment loan, the big thing that's most important is your payment history. So your payment history makes up 35%, which is the largest chunk of what creates your overall credit score. And so payment history is so important. If it shows up 30 days late, it can literally just slaughter that credit score that you've been working towards. But when it comes to credit cards, just my words of advice, keep a very low balance. I've seen where some people try to go out and they try to get 5 or 10 credit cards all at one time to establish good credit. You actually could appear as a credit risk trying to take on too much too soon. So those hard inquiry means somebody's, you've applied for credit. If you're looking at your own credit, saying like Credit Karma or your Experian app or something like that, it's a soft credit pull. So it doesn't affect your scores, but those hard credit inquiries when you're applying for credit, they stay on your credit algorithm for 2 years before it drops off. Yeah, so those inquiries actually impact on your credit score. So I know sometimes people feel buried in debt and that we refer to it as servicing debt. If all you're doing is with your take-home pay, paying 50% of what you take home going towards managing this debt load, car payments, credit card debts, installment loans, there's not a lot left for anything else. You can't tithe and save, you can't contribute towards your 401k. And especially when there's an employer match, my gosh, it's free money. It reduces your tax liability. Like there's so many great things in it and people literally can't take advantage of it because they're over here servicing all these debt payments. We did a loan application for a hopefully first-time home buyer, and he earns $3,500 a month. Dawn, his car payment is $780 a month. So a really good rule of thumb is your car payment, should you have one, should be about 10% of your take-home pay because you have, auto insurance.
Housing is usually 30%, right?
30% is a really great rule of thumb. And, for the rules that we work inside of lending, they really look at what's called gross income. For those who don't know what that is, it's before any kind of deductions. I like to look at it as what you actually take home, your net, because that's the real dollars you're working with. So, if I'm coaching somebody on where they should really be looking at, even for their rent payment, there are 45 million renters in America. And over a third of them are close to 50% of their take-home pay is going towards their housing right now.
Oh, that's not surprising. Yeah.
We have this terrible crisis in our country. And so what I'm seeing as a trend right now is credit cards getting maxed out. I did a loan application last week for a young guy. He's 26 years old. He's got 2 installment loans, one of them being his car payment. I think the other one's like maybe a crotch rocket or a bike or something, right? And he has 8 credit cards with balances, but not only balances, 7 of them were maxed out. He's 26 years old. And so we had to just pause there and say, listen, do you feel like you're drowning already? Yeah. All right, well, here's our plan. I don't mean to dog credit repair companies, but it's an unregulated industry, and a lot of people can get into this business by paying $500 to pay for their right to say that they work for a credit repair company. And unfortunately, what they do is they charge, $99 a month to dispute everything on your credit. And disputes can actually hurt you when it comes time to buy a home, when it comes time to go get a loan, because that dispute language, it says a little something. And underwriters want that removed, or they actually hold it against you. So, when it comes time to, serving your employees very well, maybe invite somebody like me to come in and do like a lunch and learn, right? If everybody can just take an hour.
Just that basic information, right? It's just so powerful. How to check your own credit, like the 10%, the 30%, that's just good stuff. And where are they going to get it? Because college doesn't necessarily teach it. High school certainly doesn't teach it. Parents
didn't teach it.
Aren't seeming to do it, and who knows, they're not qualified. They're not, unless your parents are wealth management people. That can be really hard. So I love that, and something like that is just such a nominal cost and speaks such a big message to employees about like, hey, like I care about your, I want you to make the best out of what is given. And
absolutely. I mean, just knowing some basic rules of thumb, it's funny because I've talked to some people, and I actually go to start coaching them on their situation. And I've heard a couple people say, oh, I guess I need to call a financial advisor. And I'm thinking, well, let's think about this for a second. A financial advisor is here to assess your long-term goals and then help you create a plan to get to that, to fund those goals. That means you've got to have
savings
money available every month to be able to put towards saving it and having it compound, over time. You actually have to have something to start off with. A lot of times
I started with a big national organization. They just took, I think I did like $50 a month when I was a young lady. But then when I wanted to get into the big girl club and go with, an advisor that was a little bit more detailed, I had to save up my money just for her to take me.
Yes, well, and that's the truth.
Because she didn't deal with accounts smaller than a certain size.
Right.
So,
and there's not much you can do. I mean, like if you were to think of the cost of interest on a $100 credit card balance versus a cost on a $100,000 loan, that interest is very different. Well, same with an advisor. They don't even make pennies off of your $50 a month. It actually costs them more to have you in their system than what anybody would ever earn. So a lot of times people don't realize, like, I can't even help you until you have $5,000 or $50,000 or $100,000 to even start off with. And, financial advisors, therefore, then create a plan and sell you products to get you to that plan, right? It's an IRA, it's an investment fund, it's a mutual fund. So it's actually a product where if you don't have anything to start off with, they don't have anything for you to plug into. So a financial advisor isn't actually the place to start. And one of the things that makes somebody like me, a loan officer, so different than a financial advisor is I get to see things financial advisors don't get to see. I get to see your paycheck. I get to see your credit report. I get to see where your money's going and what's actually left at the end that could go towards your housing or towards your retirement and those kinds of things. And I'll be honest with you, the overall portrait is not really pretty for most people. And
the statistics, the vast majority of folks are in the Alice population, so that's awesome.
So if you've got somebody who's coming into work every day with the burden of debt and the burden of, I don't know how I'm going to make it, it's Wednesday and I don't know how I'm going to make it to Friday. I mean, there was a point in my life where I went to Hungry Howie's Pizza at noon on Wednesday and got the $3.99 one topping large pizza. And that was literally my breakfast, lunch, and dinner until I got paid on Friday. And that's not a healthy physical way to live. It's not a healthy emotional or mental way to live. I mean, there's people living that, and I was one of them. And so to be able to bring somebody in to just coach and teach could be
Right.
really significant and change the trajectory of even like future generations. Because what if they have
Yes.
kids at home and now they get to see something different portrayed, because now they actually have a plan. Now they actually have somebody who poured into them and said, well, do these things, or try this. The
Yeah.
very first and most impactful thing I did as a very young adult is I stopped having a car that I believed reflected who I was in this world. It was status and identity. So being able to, like, I sold it. I went and bought an old used Honda that was like $200 a month. It was in line with my take home pay. And
Right.
now I could finally pay off my credit card debt, right? I took on another job. I got out from underneath it. And, I'm certainly not to the giving away a third yet, but I'm well on my way. And you can't do that if you're burdened under not knowing how to manage your finances.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think, it's just those daily lifestyle decisions that lead to a lot of confusion and muckety muck. So Dave Ramsey definitely isn't for everybody, but I have gleaned some good basic tools off of him. And I think my big takeaway, he does that all cash system. I pay all my bills electronically, but then my disposable income I have in cash.
Yeah.
And it does, so my little purchases and groceries and stuff like that, where I have to make decisions on site,
Yes.
I
You
have
make better
cash.
decisions. You make better
Yes.
decisions.
And I do
Yeah.
make better decisions because I've got money in the bank.
Yep.
I could have the thing if I wanted the thing, and I'm just a
Right.
swipe away from it. But when I say no, I pay for these items with cash.
Yep.
I find myself saying, okay, well, I'll come back next week and
That
I
is a
will buy
huge-
some, I'll skip because I like to eat.
huge
So a
takeaway.
lot of my disposable income goes to great meals and stuff. So if there is something, I'll be like, okay, and I negotiate, right? Because we have to keep it between those navigational boundaries. So many people, I have to earn this and I want that, and they're asking for raises because of inflation, and business owners are already hurting, and they make it about, well, how can I live like this? My lifestyle's crunched. It is not your employer's job to invest in your lifestyle. It is your employer's job to compensate you for the value that you bring to the company. So, how to have those conversations around money and how to get the raise that you want and how to show your value, without it being an emotional conversation and bringing the logic back into it, because coming in and telling your boss all your problems isn't most of the time going to do much good. But at the same time, these employers can be amazing people. And so much of, I believe, and there's research behind this, relationships increase our longevity of life. They increase how happy people say that they are. If you do research and ask questions like, how happy are you? And okay, tell me about your relationships. It's those with the good relationships that have the higher levels of happiness in the longer lives. So networking and connecting and being in relationship with people that you really trust and stuff is just so important. I know that's important to you as well. And there's stuff that you do for new realtors, because I knew new realtors can kind of flounder out there. They get their license, they go through the school, they pass the test, they hang their license with a broker. And then oftentimes they're just kind of left to be a sitting duck. What do? You said you had a passion for new realtors. What do you do for them?
Yeah, I love this part of the industry. To your point, they're just not taught it for the very start, right? We already covered that, what that initial licensing covers. And sales, we're all in sales. Even if you're an independent, business owner, if you're an attorney, an accountant, like we still have to be able to prospect and network and bring in business. And for me, the way that I view real estate is I don't think there's any greater sales position than being a real estate agent. You are helping somebody with the most significant decision of their life. Is their largest financial decision. Most wealth is built through real estate.
Yep.
And, I've got plans in place for people who want to build wealth through real estate. Like if you bought your first home and wanted to buy your first investment home, I'm actually going to encourage you to turn your first home into an investment property.
That's what I did.
It's the best
so
way.
I didn't have to put the big down payment.
There it is. A lot of people don't realize for an investment home.
I'm having a heck of a time buying the second one because now I'm out of options, So Ugh,
Well, just for now, markets
right.
ebbing and flowing, isn't it? So, converting your first home where you could put down as little as 3%, and then converting that into an investment after you live in it for at least a year, you can buy your next home with as little as 5% down on a conventional loan. Where if you came to me and said, "Hey, I want to buy an investment property," you got to put down 20%.
Yep.
So, I mean, you could become a multimillionaire and do that, every year to 2 years, you become a multimillionaire through real estate over, just even a decade.
Yeah.
But when it comes to brand new real estate agents, a lot of them came from a job and have an employee mindset, but now you're actually a business owner. And in addition to being a business owner, you are the sales professional, right? So you've got to be admin and technician and salesperson, and you've got to do all these things and juggle all these balls and wear all these hats at the same time. But who teaches that? A lot of times they believe that their broker is going to, but the broker kind of oftentimes throws them out to the wind and says,
Yeah.
go get something. And then when you get a fish on the line, I'll help you through it. Well, I've actually interviewed a lot of really experienced realtors, and I was like, tell me your most terrible story that you had to learn the hard way in your first year. And the most recent one I heard that's just top of mind is a young lady was working with her cousin, helping her buy her first place. Well, she sent her offer over to a broker to review it, and the broker was like, "Great, send it off." Sends it off. Well, what she didn't do is have enough time in there for her financing commitment, and it's called a contingency, right? She didn't have enough time in there for that contingency, and then something came up in her financing and it surpassed that commitment date, and she lost her $5,000 escrow. More importantly than the $5,000, she lost that relationship to this day.
How
She said it was 6 years ago. To this day, her cousin won't talk to her, won't go to events, family events that she's going to go to. Like, devastating. And she's like, even just telling the story, she was reliving those emotions and that she hasn't let go of. So will she ever do that again? Heck no. But like, could she have learned that lesson a different way than the hardest way of learning it? Absolutely. And so being from the finance side, I know all of those different contingency dates on those contracts. I have worked with law offices and attorneys and title companies for over 12 years. And when you work with the listing side and the buyer side, I literally work with hundreds of realtors every single year. And I also see what works and what doesn't. And so with this knowledge base and seeing how many people had entered into this business over the last couple of years, I hate to say this because it's going to sound a little maybe mean, but it's been like fishing in a trout lake, right? Like a farm, like a trout farm. Like all you had to do is like throw your hook in and you had somebody on the line. Where if we back it up, 10, 15 years ago, you actually had to hustle for it. You had to really work hard in procuring a lead, that prospect, and then converting it to a closing. And there are, 99 steps between start and finish to make that happen. And I don't think there's a stronger need for relationship building in real estate. It's the highest trust level outside of like maybe working with a financial advisor, or an estate planning attorney, where it's so deeply connected to your emotions, because we're talking about our mortality there. It's just a really big deal. And unfortunately, a lot of times people come into this business going, well, I can make significant income. I can, be in charge of my calendar, which is the biggest farce.
That's cute. That's cute.
Exactly. Aren't you cute?
You're now contingent to everyone else's calendar is what you are.
Yeah.
I was a young realtor as well. That was my college job. I was 20 years old selling houses,
Let's give an example. You go in a contract today, you're meeting the inspector tomorrow at 3:00 because that's the time he or she can meet it. So you're rearranging your schedule. Somebody calls you at 1:00 today and says, I want to see this house at 6. You're not having family dinner, right? And then all of a sudden you get this new listing. Well, you thought you were taking kids to Disney on Saturday, but nope, you're hosting an open house. Like, you want to talk about relinquishing control, but we want to feel like we're in control, So one of the most important books any salesperson could read is something I'm rereading right now, and it's called The E-Myth. I'm sure you read it, read it. E for entrepreneurial. Such a significant book, especially for somebody starting off. It's setting up your business properly, where you're not training people, you are utilizing systems and processes, because people leave. The processes can be fine-tuned, right, over time to
Right.
figure out what you need to do, but it can be taught and trained. And that way you're not relying on this one person
Right.
to run your business. You're relying on that system and
And then
process.
you can hire for heart and personality, the things that really make them shine, and then teach them the finite skill set.
Absolutely. You know, one of the big things they teach, and I read the one that was for real estate as well, is having 4 accounts set up in your name, 2 personal bank accounts, 2 business bank accounts, one for your operating and one for your capital, so that you can, you know, have that savings going towards this next big thing to invest into your life or into your business. And just separating all of that, like, all of a sudden diffuses a lot of confusion even inside your mind when you're working
Right.
through your
Right.
profit and loss, right? Taking on all those things that you've never really been introduced to, not only the soft skills, but negotiations and overcoming objections and building sales rapport. Like I saw, you know, you had Joe Peachy, the king of sales, right? And building sales rapport. You know, not only learning and mastering those kinds of things and pouring into yourself and in your business that way, but also learning how to, you're running a business.
Right.
And you know, knowing the basics on that too. So yeah, I'm launching. It's literally called Liftoff, because so many of us
Oh,
have a
okay.
failure to launch. And you know, just having that foundation for really like what to do in your first 12 months. So we've got a
Right.
30-day boot camp, a lot of hard work, and that's part of a 90-day production plan where you can really like learn the basics, the foundation, and then you
Yeah.
start to implement it. You know, really hidden behind a mentor at first to learn the
Right.
best practices of them, and then going out and having you're getting your feet wet.
Yeah.
And then really optimizing, because the best way to improve is to just be, you know, 80% ready, not 100%. There's no such thing as perfect.
Yep.
Have it
Yep.
down good enough, and then, you know,
Go.
improvise and improve from there. And that's just how we get better. Just
Yeah.
pouring into ourselves. So yeah, so we're launching that come January. I'm super excited about that.
That is fantastic. So I always like to ask my guests one question at the end. You've had some time to experience some life and discover amazing things about yourself and about this world and how you fit in. What is one thing that you would tell your younger professional self?
So I just turned 46, and I believe I'm going to live into my 90s. So I'm like at that halfway mark, right? And like
Okay. All right.
something hits you right there, like, oh my gosh, what did I do my first half, and what am I going to do differently in my second half? You know, in my first half, in my young professional days, like my 20 somethings,
Mhm.
I was selling radio airtime. I was selling cars. I was selling cell phones. I've
Girl,
always
that's
been-
hardcore stuff. You were
Yeah,
in
right?
it to win it. I love it.
I was never taught, I was never mentored that you work through relationships, that people who know, like, and trust you. I didn't know it. And in the last 10 years, that has been the focus of my prospecting, my relationship building. And there's so much that comes out of that from my professional life, but it's actually
Right.
built me up personally in
Yeah.
my, like, some of my best relationships and my favorite people in my
Yeah.
personal life are those that I met professionally. So to learn how to build rapport and how to solve problems and serve people, not sell, that's probably my biggest takeaway from all of this. So had I known back in the day when I was selling cars, I would have been in a BNI and a chamber, and I would have been meeting people and showing them my heart and
Right.
who I am as a person, and how I want to contribute in this world and in their life, and how can I serve you, and who do you need to be introduced to, because maybe I know them. I want to make that connection and have that positive impact in somebody's life. Had I known that in my 20s, girl, where would I be right now? But
Right.
God has a plan and a purpose for
Oh,
everything.
of course. Yeah.
And, you know, in his perfect timing. So if I could share that with somebody young in their business, young in sales, or young in life, is find a mentor that you can
Yes.
really learn from. Find somebody who you like. Somebody said this a long time ago, and I love this word of advice. If you wouldn't trade lives with them, don't take their advice. And that was significant.
Preach. Preach.
So
That's
if
a whole
I-
message right there, girl.
Right. So if I could leave our listeners with this one thing, is go find people that you want to emulate. You would want to live their life, right? They're doing great, not only in their profession, but in this world. They're making a positive impact. They're helping and serving other people. They're not selling. They're finding solutions. They're serving. They're loving on other people first, where it's a hand up to other people, not a hand into my pocketbook type of a deal. That's where I would suggest is create those relationships that could be life serving, not for yourself, but for other people.
Don't they say we're the average of our closest 7 friends, something like that, financially and otherwise? So
yeah, and there are some people that will want to take you down, and they don't even know that they're jealous of your success. And it's funny, like every overnight success took 10 to 15 years to get there. You don't see the hustle that somebody has. You don't see the 15 hours a day that they're pouring. You don't see how they ended their day job and then go and pour into their side hustle in the evenings and on the weekends, because they really want to make an impact, in their own life and in the lives of other people. So, the other thing I'll say is I never read a full book and well into my 20s. It was until I graduated graduate school that I started reading. And now I just chew up 50 plus books a year, audio and like the written. I'd love to show you my library someday. Just, I used to call it self-help books. It's not self-help. It's personal and professional development. It's growth. So read. It's the best investment that you could put into
so much free information. I mean, look at all of humanity, of the entire world ever, and we have everything just one Google click away. Any curiosity that we have, we can self-educate. So
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm so grateful to have some time here with you today. Anybody would like to connect, I'm credit Kristi on pretty much anything out there. So it's Kristi, Kristi, and would love to connect with your listeners, because if you know them, they're awesome people, because you're awesome.
Well, all your information will be down in the description. If anyone has any questions about getting a mortgage or figuring out their credit or helping their employees, educate them financially, they can connect with you that way.
Awesome. Would love to serve in that way. Thanks
so much
for allowing me to be part of this.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks again for spending time with us today. If you want more HR stories and resources, go to simplythebest.com to join our newsletter. That's SIPLEY. Until next time, stay happy.